Om. 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 Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. मीना जी, ध्यान श्लोक प्लीज.
यस सर. मेरा गला आज खराब है लेकिन मैं पढ़ती हूँ सर. ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवतां नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्. नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दाय तपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारत तैलपूर्णप्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः. सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्. वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं. भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामा विकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवै रणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधना बोधितं लोके सज्जन षट्पदैर्हरः पेपीयमानमुदा भूयाद् भारत पंकजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातम् अहं वन्दे परमानन्दं माधवं. यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. हरि ओम. सर आप म्यूट हैं.
हरिहि Om. Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Harihi Om. First, I'll quickly just start the chant of the first shloka, and then we will go back to that and we will start the discussions. अथ त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगः. अर्जुन उवाच प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव क्षेत्रं क्षेत्रज्ञमेव च एतद्वितीमिच्छामि ज्ञानं येन केशव. श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रं नित्यभिधीयते एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः. Okay, so now let us start the prelude to the entire 13th chapter. Now, firstly, the 13th chapter itself has a problem. The number of shlokas in the chapter itself has a problem, right? Typically, the first shloka that I just now chanted, the Arjuna Uvacha, is believed to be. So if you look at the internet or you look at a question, how many shlokas does the Bhagavad Gita have? Then the answer will be 700, and then somebody will say, no, 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 it has 701. That extra one shloka is this particular one. The one that I just chanted, Arjuna Uvacha. Now, Arjun asks a question. In many recensions, this is not accepted as an actual text. In many recensions, now this causes further confusion. So some schools, they add it as a further text, actually, as a text. So they have 701 shlokas. Some, they add it, but they don't number the shloka. So the number of shlokas remains 34, but iska koi number nahi hai, zero number, right? Possibly they were software engineers, T0. So they add that T0, and therefore the number of shlokas remains 700, but there are actually 701. And in some books, this shloka itself is omitted. Now, why is that all this confusion about this particular shloka? The shloka is actually has virtually no meaning, in the sense that it is a question, and Krishna in his entire 34 shlokas after this actually answers exactly those questions. So now if we look at what Arjun said, Arjun basically said, Prakriti, what is Prakriti? What is Purusha? What is Kshetra? What is Kshetragya? These are things. What is Jnanam? What is Jneyam? 6 things he has asked for. He has asked for the difference or understanding what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, what is Kshetra, what is Kshetragya, what is Jnanam, what is Jneyam. Jneyam means the goal of knowledge. And the entire text of the Bhagavad Gita, this chapter, is nothing but an exposition into answering these 6 questions. So that is the first part of understanding this 13th chapter. Another thing, important thing that we have to understand. Till now, we have been going around outside ourselves, right? In chapters 1 to 6, we tried to go inside to find out how and what we are and what we function and how we function, but using the whole concept of body, mind, etc., etc. In the 7 to 12, we looked at the external world and tried to relate that to the cosmic. Now, if you start off, till now, he has already given us the methodologies. He has given us the idea of karma yoga. He has given us the idea of dhyana. He has given us the idea of jnanam. He has also given us the idea of kriya, meaning joining all of these together in a specific process. But very clearly, and not in one place, but in multiple places, he says, it is only through jnanam that you can attain moksha. I had the opportunity of meeting Raghuji's elder brother, Ravi, and due to very unusual circumstances, we managed to be awake at late hours in the night and have philosophical discussions. And he told me of a very beautiful experience that he had with the Sarvadhikari, the general manager of the Ramanashram, and a person called Kunju Swami. Actually, he was not Kunju. Kunju means small Swami. He was the younger brother of Bhagavan Sri Ramana. And Ramana Maharshi did not leave behind any disciplic succession. They had an ashram, and the ashram had a manager. And the manager would typically be one sadhu. And the younger brother was the first Sarvadhikari, as they were called. And the experience that he talked about is a personal experience that I'm not sharing. But a very interesting question that was asked by Raviji was, will all of this that we are doing here, the worship, the singing, the chanting, Bhagavan has written the 40 shlokas, and on realization, by chanting all this, will I get moksha? And Kunju Swami said, no, you will not. The only means to moksha is bhakti and jnana. Now, I have to differ here. And that was a philosophical conversation that I wanted to complete, but unfortunately I could not. And at some point we will. Bhakti itself is also a preparation. And bhakti leads to jnanam. But without bhakti, no jnanam can come. Unless, because bhakti is by definition the surrender of ego. The whole definition of itself of bhakti is that surrender of ego. And without that surrender of ego, pranipatena, right? In verse, way back in verse number 4, he has told us, pranipatena, you are falling at the feet. That falling at the feet, by giving up of the ego and saying that I know, I have a question, I have a doubt. All those also come from ego. And therefore, complete acceptance of the Guru's Vakya and going ahead and moving with that, that itself is bhakti. And bhakti leads to what? Prahlada is my role model. I have always talked about it. Sarvam Vishnumayam Jagat. Sarvam Vishnumayam Jagat. Sarva Brahmamayam Jagat. Vishnu does not come and say, I am Vishnu. Brahman does not come and say, I am Brahman. Therefore, we are just changing names, semantics. Simple semantics. So, the author of Narayanyam, Eknathji, sorry, not Eknathji, Namdevji, all of these people, they used to play physically with Vittala, with Guruvayurappa. And yet, their teacher said, sorry, you are not ready. It is only when that jhatka comes in that Sarvam Vishnumayam Jagat, Sarvam Guruvayurappan Mayam Jagat, Sarva Vittal Maya Jagat, that point leads to that next step. Sarvame Brahman. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahman. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman. Now, so that is where we start this particular chapter. Because this chapter now leads us to that jnana path of completely understanding and therefore moving through practices. So in this chapter, the goal, jneyam, is very clearly defined. And then 14 onwards, he starts giving you the methodologies. Gunatraya vibhaga, Deivasura Sampada, right? These are all the methodologies that he tells us. What is Deivi Sampad? What is Asuri Sampad? What is Sattva Guna? What is Rajo Guna? How do I cultivate one of those and to the removal of the other? All of these come in the later chapters. So this is why 13th chapter is a very, very important chapter. Second, another thing to the prelude. Typically, in the Advaitic tradition, we use Shankaracharya's Bhashya. Yes, I'll come to you. So, typically we use Shankaracharya's Bhashya as our methodology for understanding the Bhagavad Gita. Why Shankaracharya's Bhashya? Shankaracharya's Bhashya for the very simple reason that I studied under Gurudev, and Gurudev was an Advaitic thinker, and therefore we follow Advaitic thinking. But are there any other schools of thought? Will there other schools of thought also have some differences? Are they equally good, bad? Each school will always say, my school is the best. Right? Why do teachers of spirituality fight with each other? This was a beautiful question that was asked to Osho. So Osho then answered by a very nice story. He said, कि एक शहर के अंदर में दो मिठाई वाले थे, दो ही मिठाई वाले थे. तो obviously they are steep competition against each other. तो एक बार, or they used to avoid each other. One day, unfortunately, they met in the marketplace, face to face. Now they are angry with each other. So they have to do what? They have to fight. How will a mithai wala fight? So the one mithai wala told, "Jao, motichur ke laddu leke aao." So the other chap said, "Hey, pede leke aao." And they started throwing peda. They started throwing motichur ke laddu. And then the motichur laddu got over, the peda got over, hey, rasgulla leke aao, hey, gulab jamun leke aao. This kept on. Who is getting benefited? All the spectators were happily eating all the laddus and pedas. Why do spiritual teachers fight? They have no fight with each other. All their fight is for you to pick up the crumbs and learn from that. So, before we start off, we have to understand that Shankaracharya's standpoint is non-different from Ramanujacharya's or Madhvacharya's. Each of them can be used to progress from where we are. We are not anywhere near Madhvacharya also. So to say that hum Shankaracharya ka hi padhenge is also a very egoistical stand to take. So therefore, a lot of Advaitis come, oh, since you are teaching Advaita, then you should also tell that Dvaita marg is not good enough. Sorry. Each person has a marga for himself. Each person's marga is decided by his own predilections and by his guru. So no marga is different or lower or higher than the other. Please understand that, right? Yes, Raghuji, you had a question. Then we'll move on to trying to understand.
Yeah. So I was revising through the chapters 2 on to, I got up to end of 4 and started 5. And I noticed, I mean, of course, you have mentioned this in your, you have chapter 2, which is like a table of contents, a summary of the whole instruction. And then we have chapter 3, which is Karma Yoga. And then chapter 4, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Then chapter 5, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. You see, what he is doing there, I mean, it's very interesting because Arjuna asked, which way is better? And actually, though Krishna doesn't answer that directly, he is alluding to the fact that both of them are instrumental to get that complete dissolution of the ego and the merging. So, and then he has an entire chapter on jnana. Once with the knowledge, you renounce the fruits of the action, but you still do the action. And I have I don't know, maybe you may have mentioned this already. See, prior to Mahabharata, the other epic was Ramayana, which also gave a lot of the wealth of knowledge on the Parabrahman. But there, the protagonist was, even though he was a king, he subjected himself to a lot of austerities and difficulties and never took anything for himself. And I got the feeling maybe by the time of Vedavyasa's time, the perception was if you really wanted to follow spiritual evolution, you got to live like an athlete. You get nothing. There's no benefit from the world. And Vedavyasa wanted to dispel that. That you can live in the world and you can actually be functioning as any person normally, but you can still be fully evolved. And he wanted to get that message across and talks about how you can carry on doing your work in such a way. And actually, he points out that when you do this, you actually get better effect. You have got better, how do you say, productivity, and you're so on. But none of the results of the action attached to you. So this thing about the jnana, he keeps saying about devotion there. Actually, he keeps alluding to the fact that he completely surrendered. And I think that's one thing I think my brother doesn't quite get. I haven't had the same tussle with him on the same point. It's interesting that you also picked up on that.
So, when we go back to this Shankara Bhashya, most of the Bhashyas, Shankaracharya's Bhashya is one of the oldest Bhashya that we know of on the Bhagavad Gita. Now, there may have been Bhashyas written by earlier Acharyas in his own tradition, whether Gaudapada or Govindapada, Bhagavad have written any other thing or not, we don't know. For example, Gaudapada has written an entire Karika. Karika is a Bhashya written in poetic form. So, Karika written in poetic form, Bhashya written in poetic form on the Mandukya Upanishad. And the Karika itself is so difficult that sometimes the Bhashya on the Karika is required, right? So possibly there were existing other Bhashyas, but the oldest known Bhashya that we have is Shankaracharya, and therefore most of the other Acharyas, later Acharyas, whether it is Ramanujacharya or Madhvacharya also, have used or have studied Shankara's Bhashya and then either refuted it or borrowed from it, it doesn't matter. What we start off with is, when you look at his Bhashya and the original text, you will find that he has devoted the largest number of explanations in terms of the amount of writing that he has done on the first verse of chapter 13. And when we say first verse, he is alluding to the actual first verse, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, not from Arjuna Uvacha. He has not even mentioned that as a comment. So that is number one. Number two, he starts off by saying that in the previous teachings, we have talked about action, we have talked about knowledge, we have talked about devotion as a means to liberation. But to bring about true knowledge, it is important to distinguish between the kshetra and the kshetrajna. Now, he points out some very key Advaitic points. The Uddeshya, Adhyaya Uddeshya, the purpose of this chapter is to generate viveka between Atma and Anatma. Now, if you look at the Shad Sampat, one of the Shad Sampat is Atma Anatma Viveka, right? Understanding of what is Atma and what is Anatma. What does the word Atma mean?
Chetna.
Self, Atma,
Okay.
real self.
Sorry.
Yes, Parthada?
That part of Paramatma, that which I am.
So Parthada has done a very interesting.
Brahman.
Parthada has done a very interesting semantic thing. Param Atma, big word. Break it off. Remove the Param. I am Atma. I am Atma itself is a Vedantic statement. Hai na? I am Atma Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. I am Atma. So, okay, the word Atman or Atma actually means the nature or essence. From there, the rest of the meanings that we talked about, whether it is the self, the soul, and so on and so forth, are all derived meanings from that particular thing. Now, look at the actual dictionary meaning of the word Atman. Means that which is the nature or the essence. So, what is this, the essence of this Atman, and what is not the essence of this Anatman Viveka? Atman, Anatman, Atma, Anatma Viveka. That is the Uddeshya. Then he says the second Uddeshya is the distinction between Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So Kshetra
Sharir.
and which he relates to Sharir, वो तो बाद में श्लोक में पढ़ेंगे ही, but he relates it, Shankaracharya relates it to the apara prakriti. Apara prakriti. Right? In the earlier chapters, we have seen in chapter 7, he talks about my lower powers and my higher power. That apara part of it, he talks about here as kshetra. And the higher part he talks about as the kshetrajna. All philosophies, they talk of various, any philosophy has to address 6 specific questions. What are the 6 specific questions? Any idea? Any philosophy addresses 6 specific questions.
मैं कौन हूँ?
Jiva, right? The nature of Jiva. Second,
ईश्वर कौन है?
That is the third. बीच में और एक.
क्यों आया हूँ? पर्पस.
The second is Jagat. So Jiva, Jagat, Ishwar. Right? These are the first three. Any philosophy has to explain these three. The next is the cause of bondage. The cause of bondage. The nature of moksha, freedom from bondage, what it means. And the sadhanani, the types of sadhana that one can do to attain that moksha. So any philosophy has to address all six. And Acharya in this one chapter tries to see all the six over here. So he talks about the jiva, he talks about the kshetragya or he talks about kshetra, that is Jagat. He talks about the kshetragya, which is the jiva. He talks about the sadhana, the cause of this particular bondage, which is ignorance. And then he talks about the sadhanani, the moksha sadhan. He talks about knowledge alone. So this is very important. Now, let us also look at how we understand this particular shloka's first word. Now we'll go back to the shloka first. We'll chant it first properly, the way we do the normal chanting. We'll start from whatever is the number in your text, whatever you're using. Either it will be 2 or it will be 1. That will depend over there. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Idam Shariram Kaunteya. Idam Shariram Kaunteya. Kshetram Mityabhidhiyate. Kshetram Mityabhidhiyate. Idam Shariram Kaunteya. Kshetram Mityabhidhiyate. Etadyo Vetti Tam Prahuhu. Etadyo Vetti Tam Prahuhu. Kshetragya iti tadvidaha. Kshetragya iti tadvidaha. Etadyo vetti tam prahuhu. Kshetragya iti tadvidaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Idam shariram kaunteya. Kshetram mityabhidhiyate. Etadyo vetti tam prahuhu. Kshetragya iti tadvidaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. We know the meaning word by word. Then idam, this, shariram, body, kaunteya, son of Kunti, kshetram, field, iti, thus, abhidhiyate is termed as, is called, etat, this, yah, one, who, veti, knows, tam, that person, prahuhu is called, kshetragya, knower of the field. Iti, thus, tatvidaha, those who discern the truth. So, the Lord says, Sri Bhagavan says, Arjun, this body is termed as kshetra, and the one who knows this body is called kshetragya by the sages who discern the truth about both. Now, let us start. The first thing he says is idam. Now, the moment we say idam, this is very crucial. Anything that is referred to as idam means this. This. The moment you say this, it means you have objectified it. Correct? Philologically correct? Ontologically correct? The moment I have said that I am this, I see this, then that is an object. It is called Vishaya. It is called Vishaya. And therefore, it has to be observable by something which is therefore the observer. which is the observer. Now, this brings me to this beautiful text which I have referred to earlier, and verse number 1 of that particular text itself. It says that eyes see the form. Eyes see the form. Now, this presumes three things. This presumes three things. What? What are the three things it presumes? Any idea?
कल्पना करेगी वो उस चीज को, आकृति क्या है उसकी?
नहीं.
You are not the form to be able to see the form.
Okay.
So that already has the two separate.
Mm-hmm.
There is a form, there is I,
Mm-hmm.
somebody else
And
who has the
and the form
And
is
there is seen.
perceived by the eye through a means of perception. So
So the first
I
is
can think of I and the object. These are two different things. That is
the
one
first.
clarity.
Perfect. Very good. That the observer, the seer, and the seen have to be different. They can never be the same. Right? What is the second?
Second, I cannot see itself.
Perfect. Thank you. The seer cannot see himself. Correct? The eye cannot see himself. क्या बोलता है? कभी mirror देखा है क्या? The mirror shows me a reflection of the eye, not the eye. Selfie नहीं लिया है. Selfie shows me a picture of the eye, not the eye. Can the eye see itself? No, it cannot see itself. Right. Third, and this is important.
Any change in the object doesn't change the seer.
So wonderful. There is multiplicity in the object. There is only one subject. So there are multiplicity in either in the form itself that is changing, or there are multiple forms. So Dhrtarashtra Viveka, the first line, the verse itself says, Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik. Form is seen, eyes are the seer. Right?
therein actually it is also pointing out that the experiencer, the body is not the experiencer. I mean, the capacity to experience is only with the seer, not with the body.
We'll see that. So, not 100% true, but then we will see that. We're very good. In 31, by the time we reach 31, we will, in this this chapter itself, we will see the difference. So, first and foremost, we have to understand this. Now he says, idam shariram. Right? Idam, this we have understood is an object, shariram. The moment he says, now he adds this and he says shariram, then he has already told you that you are not the sharira, because this sharira he has said. Correct? अभी हम लोगों ने इतना डिफाइन किया, रूपम दृश्य लोचनम दृक्. तो फिर उधर ही से आता है idam shariram, this lochan, or this body. Now if I say this means the body is an object, so there has to be a subject which is watching. Now the third word he uses is another interesting word, and he says, third meaning I'm leaving out Kaunteya, which is addressing. Idam shariram kshetram. What is the meaning of kshetra? Sudhir, you said something.
प्लेटफॉर्म जहाँ हम काम करेंगे,
area,
एरिया जो जगह हम काम करेंगे,
एरिया जहां हम काम करेंगे,
संसार
सब फिलोसोफर बन गए हैं, ग्रामरियन
Field
बनिए।
of action.
फील्ड,
Field of action.
field, simple. Kshetra, in local language, where the apabhramsha tadbhava shabda is khet,
खेत,
right? हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं? खेत बोलते हैं। क्षेत्र से
खेत
आता है खेत। तो खेत में क्या होता है?
अनाज उत्पन्न होता है।
वेरी गुड,
खेती।
खेती होता है।
खेती होती है, अनाज उत्पन्न होता है। मतलब क्या भाई, अनाज कहां से उत्पन्न होगा?
उसको खेत को प्रिपेयर करना
बीज
पड़ता है,
बोएंगे।
जोतना पड़ता है, पानी डालना पड़ता है, शीड डालना पड़ता है।
हाँ, कुछ कुछ भी करिए खेत में, पहले एक चीज कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा, तब तक जाकर होगा ना। जो जोतेंगे नहीं तो भी होगा, क्या नहीं करेंगे तो कुछ नहीं उगेगा। व्हाट हैज टू बी
बीज
डन?
नहीं था।
हाँ, बीज डालना पड़ेगा, राइट? बीज डालेंगे, कुछ ना कुछ उगेगा। आम की गुठली डालेंगे, अनार उगेगा, राइट?
अनार नहीं,
आम के पेड़ होते हैं।
आम के पेड़ उगेंगे। गेहूं डालेंगे, क्या उगेगा? गेहूं के पौधे उगेंगे, गेहूं के पौधे उगेंगे। जो कर्म करेंगे उसका इस खेत पे उसका वही फल आएगा। बहुत कुछ बोल गए, इदम शरीरम चैत्रम, idam you have understood, shariram. Now sharira also we have to understand. So what is the sharira according to Acharya here? What is the sharira?
पंचभूतों से बनी हुई ये जो बॉडी है, यही शरीर है।
Okay, so you have to go to the third word again and come back to the second word. Kshetra, the word comes also has a root in ksha. Ksha means to change, to decay. दोनों मीनिंग होता है, to change, to decay. So that which decays, that which changes. By adding that word kshetram, Krishna is very clearly telling you manas, buddhi, ahamkara, avyakta, सब कुछ इसके अंदर में included है. Not only the physical body, but the pranic body and the manasic body and the vijnanamaya kosha and the anandamaya kosha. All of these are nothing but sharira. Name panchakoshaha. Acharya says na, Nirvana Shatakam ke andar mein name panchakosha. That 5 koshas is sharira, not only the annamaya kosha. हमारा प्रॉब्लम सबसे बड़ा ये है कि हमारा आइडेंटिफिकेशन सबसे ज्यादा वो अन्नमय कोश के साथ होता है। इतने दूर तक कि आप गाड़ी के पास से जा रहे हैं, गाड़ी के अंदर में आपका रिफ्लेक्शन दिखता है तो उसको खुद को देख लेते हैं एक बार, ठीक दिख रहे हैं। ये यही आइडेंटिफिकेशन प्रोसेस, ये डिसआइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए आचार्य बहुत क्लियरली बोल रहे हैं, इदम शरीरम क्षेत्रम, the field where all the actions that you have sowed in the past will fructify. Also, those actions that will fructify will change. And it is the sharira, which is kshetra, therefore changing. And it is this, which means it is not you. Idam kshetram shariram kaunteya. And therefore, we go back to Dhrtarashtra Viveka, and he says, Tadrishyam driktu manasam. Right? Tadrishyam driktu manasam. Who sees the eye? Who sees the eye? How? Can you give me an example? It's very simple. How do you do this?
Yeah, because you can be staring at something and not see it at all because the mind is not somewhere else.
Okay.
And so the mind has to be actively involved in the seeing before you can actually see something.
Let me put it like this. I think all 6 of us, 7 of us here are wearing spectacles. So we all remove the spectacles. Please go ahead, remove them. Did the act of seeing change? No. But did the act of perception change? Obviously, because now who is observing that the eye is not seeing clearly now? Put your glasses back. Now tell me.
Self.
कौन देख रहा है ये? Self. ये self का नाम क्या है?
मैं.
ये self आपका मनस है.
Mind.
Yes.
Mind है. So your mind can clearly see that your eyes are not seeing. Now, if your mind is seeing the eye, going by the same logic that we used in the earlier, the 3 things that Parthoda talked about, that the seer and the seen cannot be the same, then the manas and the eye is not the same. Correct? That was your first point. The second you said was that the eye remains the same and there is multiplicity of objects. Here also, the mind remains the same. There are multiplicity of perception organs, right? Eyes, nose, tongue, ears, all of that. And the eye remains one. There is a multiplicity. And third, the mind cannot see itself. Now, the mind is not seeing that this is happening. Now you are seeing the eye. You are seeing the eye. So now, I first established through Dhrtarashtra Viveka and Idam Shariram Kaunteya that I am not the external world. But by going further in this, we also established the basic principle of saying, my senses with which I see the external world are also not me. इतना तक क्लियर है? Yes, no? एक्सपीरियंशियली सही है कि नहीं मैं पूछ नहीं रहा हूं, समझ में आया कि नहीं? आई एम ओनली आस्किंग वेदर यू अंडरस्टूड. नाउ व्हाट वी नीड टू डू is to experience this. Otherwise, going forward is meaningless. Right? I can finish chapter 13 in 2 days. We will read, translate, and go ahead. Finished. That doesn't work. You have to apply this because the chapter 13 to chapter 18 is an application. No longer understanding, no longer emotive understanding, intellectual understanding, physical understanding. No. वो सब हो गया 1 to 12 के अंदर में. अब मुझे इसको experientially gain करना है. So if now you spend time and most of you have been doing Soham breathing, now you observe yourself breathing. अभी तक क्या कर रहे थे? Breath को observe कर रहे थे. अब now you observe yourself breathing. That's one step forward. Oh, have we reached the end then? No. There are many staircases, many steps. But एक step आगे लेते हैं कि मैं खुद को breathe कर रही हूं, ये मैं देखूंगा मीना जी. तो अब मैं मेरी ब्रीदिंग नहीं हूं, मैं मेरा सांस नहीं हूं, ये तो बहुत क्लियर था. मगर ये मैं सांस लेने की शक्ति भी मैं नहीं हूं, ये अभी क्लियर करना है. तो इसको जब हम अपने अनुभविक रूप में इसका हम लोग अनुभव कर सकते हैं, इसका अनुभव ले सकते हैं, तब हम एक कदम आगे बढ़े. यस रघु जी.
I actually found that very disturbing in my japa. So when I'm doing my japa and I'm doing the thing, I also very often I will actually see myself sitting and doing the japa, and I find that is distracting. It kind of takes away from that blissful thing, because I feel that there's again an expression of my ego, that I'm seeing myself sitting there. I don't know. Maybe it's a guilt feeling. I don't know. Maybe I've been told this sometime in my past that and I feel guilty about that. But I've always found that aspect of seeing myself doing it and seeing myself experiencing it has always kind of taken me in my javam. I don't like to do that.
So until you do that, what are you involved in? You are involved in the absence of perception itself is a perception. I have closed myself in a what is it called? Sudhir, वो क्या बोलते हैं उसको? वो जो sensory. Okay, got it. Remembered. Sensory deprivation tank. Right? I'm sure you have heard of this. Sensory deprivation tank. They put you in a liquid. The liquid has a higher degree of oxygenation, so you can actually breathe that liquid into your lungs and breathe out. The oxygen will absorb. So therefore they immerse you back into your mother's womb. The tank has no external sensory input coming in, and you go into complete sensory deprivation. So now what are you left with? You're left only with your mind, right? And then what do? So the mind goes to sleep. The mind goes to sleep. All perceptions have got blocked out. And I get what is called a sense of bliss. Now, it's not bliss. It is the reflected bliss of Satchidananda. The true bliss of Satchidananda comes, you will know it. It cannot be described. You will know it. So therefore, we will stop here because I want you to do this practice and take that one step forward. Because if you have reached chapter 13, we are ready for that. Chapter 1 to 12, we have understood all the theories. How is action going to help me? How is devotion going to help me? How is jnana going to help me? Now need to put it into practice. So we will combine Dridrishya Viveka as well as idam shariram kaunteya kshetram. And he then uses another word. He says, iti abhidhiyate, ityabhidhiyate. Now even that has to be understood. But we will do that in the next session. Chaliye. Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So